Hi everyone, thanks so much for joining me this afternoon for Strategic Marketing on a Shoestring Budget. My name's Kristy Bailey. I'm the Director of 180 Marketing and also an advisor and a presenter for the ASBAS program that is run by Business Station, obviously a federally funded program. With my business, I focus on strategic marketing for clients. So everything we're going to go through today is based on experience, based on what I do on a sort of a daily basis. So if you'd like to draw on any of that experience at any time, please stop me. I'd like today to be as interactive as possible. So if you'd like to pop on and ask questions at any time, you are more than welcome to, just by utilizing the Q&A functionality. So type a message in. If I see it pop up as I'm talking, I will absolutely answer it. But otherwise, I'll certainly stay on towards the end of the session as well, just to answer any questions that you might have. So today we are going to identify the components of a marketing strategy and then also talk about a marketing plan and how your strategy can, or having a strategy can have huge financial benefits for your business. So we'll also then look at a range of low-cost marketing tactics that you might be able to implement within your business. And we'll look at then the importance of measuring and controlling your marketing activities. And that's to make sure that you're producing sales and obviously spending your money effectively. Before we get into that, just first of all, to define marketing. Well, marketing is anticipating the needs and wants of targeted customers and managing the process through which those needs and wants are satisfied. But in doing that, you really have to do it profitably. The key word in this, in addition to profitability, is targeted. So you really have to know exactly who you're selling to so that you can know what their specific needs and wants are, and therefore provide them exactly what they want, and then provide that to them how and when they want it and where they want it as well. So one of the key elements of today's webinar is looking at the theory that successful marketing doesn't have to cost your small business significantly, but you really have to know the results of what you're doing so that you can make sure that you are spending your money in the right areas. So that's where strategic planning comes into it. Now, many small businesses will create a business plan when they start up. Perhaps they do it as part of their pitch to get funding from a bank, or perhaps they do it, to determine whether or not they want to go into business. But with the day-to-day running of your business and things that can change throughout the course of your business, generally, a lot of time goes by before people refer back to that plan. So with things that can happen, your priorities may shift. You might introduce new products or services. There could be key staff that come or go that sort of change the dynamic of your business. So the best way to make sure that you're actually marketing effectively and reaching your goals is to go through that really important process of annual planning. And to do so, looking at your business plan in the first step, and making sure that your marketing goals actually align with what the overall business objective is, and making sure that that business objective and your business goals are still relevant to the business in its current state. I would recommend doing that at least on an annual basis, and doing this strategic planning from a business and a marketing perspective to make sure that you are staying on track. And like I said, the two tie in together, and that will then allow you to really be able to market in a cost-effective way and achieve your business goals at the same time. So to define the strategic planning elements of your business, have a look at the pyramid that's on your screen now. So you've got your business goals that sit as your major component of your business planning. The marketing strategy sits directly above that and has to align with those overall business goals. Your marketing strategy then defines your marketing mix, which is your price, your product, your promotion, and your place, so your distribution. And the marketing plan then is simply the implementation of it all. So allocating marketing resources, allocating, the actual budget for it, and just implementing that strategy. So what is a marketing strategy? Well, a marketing strategy is really a selection of a course of action that involves specific consumer groups. It obviously involves communication methods and distribution channels and pricing structures as well. So it's a combination of your target markets and marketing mixes. So the huge advantage of a marketing strategy is that it allows you to really find and use what works and then stay focused. So for most small businesses, developing that marketing strategy itself can come with a lot of overhead. You can pay significantly for someone to develop a marketing strategy for you. But what I'd like to go through today is really highlighting elements of that strategic planning process that you can look at, so it doesn't have to cost you a lot. Then the next stage of that is in terms of what advertising and what actual marketing spend you implement. So a lot of advice that marketing agencies might give you would be that you have to have a significant marketing budget, but there are a lot of things that you can do yourself, that you can implement yourself, and things that you can do at little to no cost. So strategic planning itself, as I said, you might pay someone significantly to develop a strategic marketing plan for you. It is an extensive process. So for me, it normally takes a number of weeks to obtain information, then analyze that information. It's a process of going back and forth to develop a strategy around everything that you have learned. So in a marketing strategy that I would develop, there'd be key strategic research areas or areas of analysis that I would include. The first area is a SWOT. So looking at your business's strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. So strengths and weaknesses are factors inside your company or internal factors, whereas opportunities and threats are external factors that have the ability to directly impact your business. A process of determining or developing a SWOT or doing that research is essentially a brainstorm. And I would encourage everybody in your business to complete a SWOT analysis and list down the areas that they find your business has strengths and weaknesses, as well as any opportunities or threats that they may have determined. I think the more people that you can get involved in that process, the more information you'll get. Also, if you get as many staff as possible involved in your strategic planning, the more on board they'll be with it when it comes time to tell them what your marketing plans are or how they can help on a day-to-day basis. So I wouldn't hesitate to get that completed by everyone in your organisation. Now, the next area of research that I would consider looking at is a pest analysis or a pestle analysis. So a pest analysis is looking at external factors that you may or may not be able to do anything about, but you have to be aware of to understand how they may impact your business. So we would look at 4 main areas and then potentially the additional 2. So any political factors that may impact your business, and that could be around legislation and regulation. It could be other political factors, economic factors, so exchange rates, even right down to, what the general economic trends are in the region that you're operating at the time. Social factors, so social factors around your product or service, specifically any trends that might be emerging positively or negatively that could possibly impact your business. Technological factors, so they could be technologies within your business, emerging technologies, current processes that you have from a technological perspective that could be a strength in your business or could potentially be limiting your business as well. Then the 2 additional areas are environmental factors. So for some businesses, you absolutely have to consider various environmental factors that will impact your business, and then legal factors as well. So many businesses will also have legal factors that impact them. So the process of gathering that information, again, it's research, it's looking at what you know about your business and what factors you can list that may impact your business. Now, when you're doing a pest or a pestle analysis, you can't always do anything about those factors, but it's really important that you're aware of them. And then perhaps go back and look at your SWOT again. Are any of those factors crossing over into being an opportunity or a threat to your business? The next strategy or research area I would look at is a competitor analysis. So have a look at all of your competitors, actively go and have a look at their websites, go to their shop fronts, depending on the nature of your product or service, and do that regularly. I would do that at least every year to see what they're offering, follow their social media pages, but write out a detailed competitor analysis in the form of a document that clearly states who your competitors are and what they're offering to consumers. Whilst you might think your competitors off the top of your head, I think depending on what they're doing and how often you actually analyze them, it can be a really good activity to just note that information down and perhaps pick up on any changes that they may have recently made. Obviously, you have to analyze your own sales. What are your current sales results and what has the trend been over previous years, and document them month by month and year by year. And then also identify planned growth areas. So what products or services can you grow? Is there any different seasonality that you can sort of fill more or expand on or get higher revenues? You absolutely have to define your unique selling proposition. So what is it that makes you truly unique or different? And what is it that you're pitching to clients? Now, as part of your competitor analysis, while you're looking at what your competitors are doing, you might at that point realize that you have something that is truly unique and it gives you an edge on your competitors, essentially. Or there could be areas that you're not as strong in comparison to your competitors. So you then develop those areas within your business and have a new unique selling proposition. Now, the next area that you need to really research is your target market. You have to truly define who they are. Now, I'm going to go into that in quite a bit more detail shortly, but this is probably the core of all business activity, is to really know who it is that you're pitching your products or services to. The next element, which I'll also expand on, is your marketing mix. Your 4 Ps, your product, your price, your place, and your promotion, and having a strategy around each of those areas. And then, of course, your financial analysis and budgeting. Now, I get asked regularly, how do you budget for marketing? What percentage of your gross revenue should be spent on marketing? And the benchmark is generally, it's a 4 to 10% of your gross revenue should be spent on marketing. So they say that 4% will maintain your current position, whereas up to 10% will grow that position. You really do have to estimate your demand, though, given your pricing and your promotion strategy, to be able to know what that budget is. I also think that in terms of a budget, have a look at what you've spent over the previous years and try and stay within that sort of range, because you've been able to afford that in the past. So don't go over the top and double your budget if it's not going to be sustainable. When you're looking at your financial analysis and budgeting, you have to factor in expenses that are associated with producing marketing materials, as well as your actual advertising costs. And of course, you have to know about your cash flow. So you have to know when you're going to have cash to spend on marketing. Also, when the marketing is going to that you're doing, or the advertising that you're doing, is going to result in actual sales for you as well, to then know when you can spend more money. So thinking also, when you're in the budgeting phase, what are the critical assumptions of your financial analysis, and what are the impacts of any changes in those assumptions? So some of these strategy areas and these research areas I've mentioned on this slide now are really straightforward and quite obvious, whereas some require a little bit more explanation. So I will leave you to do some of that research yourself. So your SWOT, your pest analysis, your competitor analysis, looking at your sales and your unique selling proposition. All of that stuff is very straightforward. It just takes time to research the information. But now we're going to go on and talk a little bit more about target markets. So I truly believe that the most important component of marketing, and particularly of strategic marketing, is to know your target market. So a target market is a segment that has been selected by your business for marketing attention. So through research, you'll be able to determine who your target market is, or who it could be. And you might find, as you're researching, that there are target segments or target markets that no one's reaching or communicating to. There might be target markets that are being served by your competitors, and you would find this out through your competitor analysis, that perhaps your competitors aren't serving them very well. Or there might be other target markets that are saturated with options, so they'll be a bit more difficult for you to get to. So you might decide to divert your focus on different target markets. But basically, market segmentation is dividing your customers into groups now, or market segments, and they have to have common characteristics. So to be a viable market segment, though, they have to generally meet 4 criteria. So the first is that they have to be homogenous. So they all have to be alike to be in the same segment. The second is that they have to differ from the general population. but they also have to be different than other market segments, so they have to stand alone. The third is that they have to be large enough to be financially viable and to support their own marketing campaign. So you might have some market segments that meet the first two criteria, but they're too small to support their own campaign. In that sense, you're not going to turn those customers away, but you're not going to focus your marketing attention on them because the return isn't big enough. Now, the last criteria doesn't really apply to us in Australia as much. But it's that the market segment has to be reachable by some form of media or marketing communications method. So majority of people in Australia or visitors to Australia are reachable by some communication method. There are children that can be difficult to reach, but obviously in that sense, the decision maker, the parents. So think about that. If it's not the end user, or if the end user is your target audience, but they're not reachable, think about who's making the decision. So consumer markets can be segmented or divided along a number of different dimensions. The most common is demographics because it's the easiest. Other methods are psychographics, maybe generational division, geographic locations, splitting them up by the benefits and usage. So think about all of those different factors and how you would actually identify a clear target audience by many of those factors, not just one. Now, without a clear image of your target market, if you're a small business, you'll try to reach pretty much everyone, which means that you will appear to nobody. So you should be able to really describe your target audience, your target market, and visualize them. Once you know everything about them in terms of their age, their gender, their income level, where they're located, what they like to do in their spare time, and who they are as a person, you'll know exactly where to advertise to them. That will save you a lot of money from a marketing perspective because you can be extremely targeted. So your chances and the return on your marketing investment is going to be a lot higher. So target markets are the core of absolutely everything that you should do from a marketing perspective. Now, the next element we're going to talk about is your marketing mix. So with your marketing mix, it's your products, your price, your promotion, and your place. So in terms of this, there could be 7 Ps. So you might have heard of these are the 4 Ps. There could be 7 if you include people, process, and physical environment. But today we're just going to talk about the 4 Ps. So first of all, your products. Does your product range complement each other, or do products in your range, I should say, complement each other? So do you have products and prices that make sense? Do they suit who you've identified as your target audience, or do you need to make changes to appeal more to your target market? And what's really interesting and really important to note is you cannot expect an individual to change their needs and wants based on your product. You will have to change your product based on what you know your target market's needs and wants are. So that's a really important thing to know. You always have to be evaluating your target market to know if their needs and wants are changing as well. Your pricing. So how does your price suit your target market? How does it compare to competitors? You'll know a lot of this through competitor research. How does each price in your product range look alongside the other products or services? Does your pricing allow for enough profit? Now, with pricing, there's a few ways you can determine your pricing, but I think you need to know a range of things to really work out what you should be charging. So you need to know how much a product or service costs you. So if it's a service, how much does it cost you to operate? If it's a product, how much does it cost you to purchase plus run your business? You need to know what your competitors are charging because you want to stay competitive to them from a price perspective, or if you want to be a higher price, you have to communicate a higher value to the customer. And the third element is knowing what the customer wants to pay or is willing to pay. So you need to know from a research perspective, how much is a customer willing to pay for a product or service? And you have to look at all 3 of those elements together to be able to effectively work out your pricing. Then from a pricing perspective, you need to think, are you going to be discounting? Are you wholesaling your products or services? And what's that distribution chain? So that sort of leads into promotional distribution. What is your strategy around promoting your product? Do you wholesale your products? If yes, go back and look at that pricing and make sure that you have incorporated a wholesale price into your strategy. Also thinking about how you're going to go to your market, or how you're going to go to market, attracting customers directly, and where specifically do they consume media and advertising, what type of methods will appeal to them. And you know a lot of this information from thoroughly researching your target market. So it all comes back to your target audience. You have to know them intimately to really determine where and how you're going to promote your product and service. And then your place is really just where you're going to place your advertising. So that's really, really straightforward. But keep in mind all of that, and I know I've said it a couple of times because I'm very passionate about target markets. You absolutely need to know who it is you're talking to be able to really have a strategy around these 4 Ps. So that's an absolute fly through on the development of a strategy. It takes a lot of time. It takes patience while you research. And then when you get information, it might lead to more questions. So you've got to go back and forth. And we could definitely talk about strategy all day, but I think, and hopefully you've picked up that the key point was that you have to be really, really targeted. And spend your funds, particularly if the funds are limited, very well with a solid strategy behind you. So do your research, spend that time really identifying and going through those key strategy areas, and understanding your business from a strategic perspective. So in terms of why you should strategically plan, well, it composes the big picture, and it really does it through pinpointing those specific target markets, through determining your customers' needs and wants through market research, and perhaps adapting your product or service to suit those needs and wants. Keeping in mind, like I said earlier, people aren't going to change their needs and wants around your product or service. It has to be the other way around. And then you create a marketing mix that meets those needs and wants. So some key considerations are that your strategic planning has to match your resources and your capabilities, and that will really ensure long-term growth and survival for your business. So you have to factor in all of these components that we've discussed, the internal research, the external research, to get that true big picture. And I really believe that strategic planning should be an integrated activity. I think you should involve many areas of your business, or many people within your business. And, keep in mind, if you're running a business and you're sort of back of house or back office, you might not know some of those conversations that are going on in front of house or, in the consumer facing environment, and the frontline staff might. So you might miss something in your strategic planning without talking to them. And that kind of feedback is invaluable. It also means that your team will feel involved and stay on board with what you're trying to achieve. I would recommend getting your team together and have a marketing sort of planning day, at least annually. It gives a really good forum for them to give some feedback, to share what they know and feel involved, as well as provide you with some really interesting information. So if you're marketing, you have to understand what's going on in all areas of the business. So if you don't have a team, or you can't get a team together, make sure that you do have a solid understanding of all areas. So that is the most important element in marketing on a shoestring budget. It's knowing exactly who you're talking to, what products they want, and where they consume media. So where you should advertise to them, and then no marketing dollar will be wasted. But now we're going to go on to have a look at some specific low-cost marketing activities. All right, so you've done the research, you know your audience, you're targeting your advertising towards this audience and where they consume that media. So now in terms of what are some essential low-cost marketing activities, well, first of all, making sure that you're set up online and that all elements of your online profile are really solid. So starting with your website, of course, your website, and I'll talk more about websites in just a second, but that has to be it's your number one salesperson. So no matter what product or service you are offering, a lot of the time research starts online. And I think there's a stat, it's about 67%, I think off the top of my head, I've got lots of stats, but let's say 70% of all research in terms of product and service purchases start online. Unless you're a truly walk up sort of business, like a coffee van or something like that. But otherwise, if people are looking for a product or service, particularly the more high value the product, the more research goes into it. So a lot of that starts online, even if you're hospitality outlet, just to get your address. They might still look on your website to have a look at your menus and that kind of thing. So have a think about your website, and does it truly represent who you are? Then you've got search engine optimization online. So making sure that when people do search, your website can be found. There's some certain online advertising that you can do, which I'll go into more shortly as well. In terms of your referrals and reviews online, you have to be making sure that you're really seeking them. So asking for people to review you. It gives you an outlet to listen to what your customers are saying, read those reviews, listen to the feedback, make sure that you are genuinely offering the right product or service. You can set up alerts to notify you anytime you get a review on Google, on Facebook, on any of the platforms that you might be getting reviews on. There could be industry-specific review sites like Urban Spoon, TripAdvisor. There's absolutely, there's a huge range of different review sites. So make sure that your online referrals and reviews are answered. That's a really key element. And of course, that's free to have those review sites, and it's only a matter of time for you to go on and respond to them. But if people are reviewing you, they're trying to talk to you, it's really important that you're there to talk back. It also sends some pretty strong messages to other people that are researching. Now, personalized marketing is absolutely crucial, and it really helps when you are working on little budgets as well. So email and social media can be very personalized. You can talk to your audience specifically and talk to them about relevant events, times of year. You can obtain an email database so that you can talk more specifically to people that have perhaps purchased things through you. So think about how people actually transact with you, and if at any time they do give you an email address, are you utilizing that to add value to them, to give them products or offers that are tailored to them, or perhaps even information and hints and tips, and somehow trying to engage with them as personalized as you can. New customer offers are a great way to get new business in the door. Now, once you've got them in, they cost very little, I should say, to keep. Subject to your customer service, subject to your whole customer service policy and your procedures and your customer journey, making sure that they have a good experience at every touch point. If you can get them in the door through some kind of new customer offer, then you keep them, you stay in touch with them, and then you keep them in the cycle. So they become your advocates, essentially recommending more new business, which is getting more customers in the door. So there's another statistic for you. There's something like it costs 8.5 times more to attract new customers than it does to keep existing ones. So keep that in mind. It's really, really cost effective for you to find a way to keep your customers in the loop, whether that's through new customer offers to get them in the door, but then some kind of retention strategy as well. The other key thing in terms of marketing strategically is to really nail your value proposition. So know what your unique selling proposition is. Focus on developing content around exactly what that is. So highlight it and storytell through your content. And when I say content, I mean your website content, your social media content, whether that's newsletters, whatever you produce, make sure that it's telling your story and it's really focusing on your unique selling proposition. Because you remember, or customers, as people, we're looking to satisfy a particular need or want through making a purchase. And that is largely generated by what it is that you offer. So your value that has to match our need or want. So really speaking about that unique selling proposition is going to appeal to the right people. PR is also a huge one. Be your own PR advocate. Get free publicity, engage with the media. Now, I do a webinar on media and PR for small business specifically that really goes into detail about how you can do that. So keep an eye out for that. But there's so many ways that you can get free publicity, free good publicity, and really generate that third party, that earned sort of media space, which is hugely valuable to you, far more valuable than any advertising, and most of the time completely free. So PR is huge, and you can absolutely do it as a small business owner or operator. You can absolutely be your own PR advocate. Another shoestring activity is to sponsor events. So make sure that if you are looking at sponsorship opportunities, know what's in it. Sometimes you can offer products or services in kind, so you don't need to pay any cash. Other times you might pay a small amount of cash. The key thing with sponsoring anything, whether it's an event or a charity, whatever that is, their target audience has to match your target audience. So think about if you're sponsoring the local footy club, for example. Think about the people, if they've got, let's say they've got a fundraising night, the people that are at that fundraising night, are they your specific target market? If they're not, there's absolutely no value in you having your logo up on the screen or your logo in booklets or information going out to their database. So really make sure any sponsorships have the exact same target audience as your business, and that way you're going to get huge value from them. So that's really important to consider. Now, the last point I've got there is don't forget about grassroots marketing. And I think this is really important because sometimes we get so caught up in the world of online and trying to be different and really stand out that we forget about the basic things like signs, like billboards on your own venue or your own office, and those kind of things, whether it be flags, whether you're doing handouts and brochure, flyers in nearby businesses or whatever that is. So have a think about that and have a think about what can you do that's really low cost that will stand out. Also, don't forget traditional marketing. So a lot of what we do in terms of low cost marketing is online, and that's because online you can be extremely targeted. You can spend very little money and get great reach, but there could be some traditional marketing activities that do still work for your business. So grassroots marketing, I think, is hugely important, but also consider traditional marketing if the opportunities arise. Again, just match whatever you're doing to your target audience. So now we're going to talk more about some of the online marketing tactics and how you can best market your business online, because as I mentioned, every business, no matter your industry, really should be online, and you can really maximize that online presence to get new business, but then capitalize on every marketing dollar spent. So it can be, like I said, really targeted, very trackable. And that's a hugely valuable part, is that every dollar you spend, you can track to know whether or not it returned for you. So if it's not producing the right results, you can change it very quickly and redirect your marketing focus to other areas. So another huge benefit. All right, so first of all, we're going to talk about your website. At the core of every, or the core of every business, but at the core of your online marketing is your website. You do have to keep in mind it's only part of the strategy. Potential customers then have to be able to find your website. You also have to actively engage with current and future customers online. So it's not your entire online strategy, but it's the core of it. Everything you do leads back to your website. So whether it's a flyer, whether it's a sign on the back of your car, or it's a social media post, whatever that is, it leads back to your website. So we'll talk more about getting found soon, but first of all, your website itself. That's a place where consumers can find out about your products. Hopefully they can make purchases, or even if you have a bricks and mortar store, you can have a component of online, or you have online sales as well. Even if you don't have a physical premises, you can still have just an online store, of course. But definitely think about your website as a 24/7, so you're 24 hour a day, 7 day a week, #1 salesperson. Is your website in its current form doing your business justice? How long ago did you refresh it? How long ago did you redevelop it? Is it selling your product or service like it should? So I think that this is an area that lets a lot of small businesses down. They develop a website just so they've got a web presence, but don't consider how businesses change and how things change. Now, you should really be able to update your website as quickly and as easily as you can do a social media post, because as things change in your business, your website has to be reflective of that. So a few key web design elements that I think you should consider are, first of all, your images. Make sure it has large hero images like you can see on the screen there. Make sure those images tell the story of your product. If you need to pay for photography or perhaps do a deal with someone to get good photography, really consider that. It's really crucial. The other thing that I think is really important, or that is really important, is that your images are representative of your target market. So think about, on your website, do you have images of people consuming your product or service or interacting with your product or service? If you do, is it your target market that people can see? Because if I want to go, let's say I go online to buy something, I think it's right for me. When I go online, if the person that is using the product in the images is completely different to me, as in, you know, not my age bracket, not who I am, it doesn't appear that I would have the same values as the person that I see, I might be hesitant to buy it and think, hang on a second, is this really right for me? So that imagery is really important. Your navigation has to be easy. Think about how people get around. Have you tested it with perhaps friends and family? Get them to try and buy something from your site, or try and contact you, or get them to do certain tasks, and make sure that getting around your website is easy for a third party. We become quite used to our own websites to the point that it might seem easy to us, but not to somebody new to the site. Also think about your call to actions. Are there strong calls to action like shop now, buy now? And do you have that functionality? So people want to be able to transact online if that's, if you've got something to sell. So whether you're a tourism product or you've got a physical product, people want to be able to get it online. They also want to be able to book services online. So think about that. We don't want to waste our time having to call somewhere to book a service or to purchase something. We want to do it in our own time, in our own way. So I keep that in mind. That's a hugely important thing for your business. Now, being fully responsive or mobile friendly is really important. So what you can see on your screen is an example of a fully responsive website. So what fully responsive means is that your web design responds to the device that it's being viewed on. So whether it's desktop, a tablet, or a mobile, it will change its shape and be usable on that particular device or that size screen. So that's really, really important. Also, making sure that you've got plenty of content on there, and the right content is hugely important as well. Can customers get enough information about your business? Does the content flow and make sense? Now, you also have to keep in mind the majority of these points that I'm running through really impact on how well you rank as well, particularly from a content perspective. So Google needs content on the website to understand what the website's about, and therefore rank you for key search terms. So imagery is so important to sell your product. Content is hugely important for the success of your results on Google, as well as for the customer experience. Now, as I said, everything about your website should be speaking to and aimed at your target market. So that includes obviously images, which I mentioned, but design, colors, the technology, the functionality. So think about who is your target audience, who you're aiming your marketing towards, and make sure that it does appeal to that target market. Now, having that great website is absolutely crucial, but people need to be able to find that site as well. So that's where SEO comes into it. I've used the term SEO a couple of times, but you may not know what it is. SEO stands for search engine optimization. So in simple terms, it's the process of improving your site to increase its visibility for relevant searches. So a key thing about SEO is that for it to be effective or worth your while, keyword research is absolutely key. So you need to know what people are searching, and then you have to try and rank well for those terms. So do keyword research before you do any SEO on your website or make any changes. What are people actually searching to get to your site? Now, Google has a tool called the Google Keyword Planner tool. It's available through your Google AdWords login. Now, basically how you use that is you brainstorm a range of different terms that you think people might be using to get to your business. In the keyword planner tool, you enter those terms and Google will tell you how many monthly searches there are on each of those terms. So that keyword research proves what you think you know. And then your next step is for you to target those terms with the higher search volumes and improve your rankings for those key search terms in search engines like Google. Obviously, there's Yahoo and Bing as well, but Google is the one that we're sort of focusing on. Now, good SEO is really a combination of hundreds of different tactical efforts. It changes and it evolves so that the tactics will need to change and evolve. Things that may have resulted in top rankings a few years ago will be completely different today. So it's really important that you continually refine your SEO program. It does take time. It would take, I would say, at least a couple of weeks to a month before you start to see any changes. And because it's a constantly changing landscape, you have to keep on top of knowing how well you're ranking, understanding if there's any algorithm changes, and then modifying your SEO accordingly. So to do that and to keep on top of any changes, I would highly recommend that you follow some of the key SEO sort of expert blogs and those kind of things. They will give you inside information or predictions of what may be changing. All right, so we're going to talk a bit more about SEO. SEO, there's two sides to it. There's on-page SEO and there's off-page SEO. So on-page SEO is everything that happens on your site that affects your ranking. So first of all, readable URLs is a key sort of element. What are your URLs? So obviously you've got a domain, which is, let's say it's yourwebsite.com.au. And then each page has / and the page. Sometimes in a content management system, as you create new pages, it could give it a code, for example, like a, page 123. That is not going to help you with your SEO whatsoever. So you need to name that page according to what is on the page and what the keywords are that you're trying to target in that page. So it could be yourwebsite.com.au / Perth coffee, or whatever that might be that suits that page of your website. Definitely make that your key words and what that page is about. Internal links are really important, so page-to-page linking. So for example, let's say your homepage talks about your product range. As you're mentioning each of the products in your product range, that should be a hyperlink to the page that talks specifically about that product. As and when you talk about something on your website, link to it. Now, this is really good for the consumer because it makes it easy for us. We don't have to go back up to your menu, then find the product you were talking about. We just click the link and go straight through. And essentially what's good for the user is going to rank well from an SEO perspective, because Google wants to make the user experience as good as possible, and therefore we'll keep using Google as a search engine. 301 redirects are really important. Now, this is where you've changed a page name. Perhaps, let's say you did have those pages that had Cody sort of URLs and you change them to proper URLs. You have to do a redirection on them. So it basically informs your search engine bots that the URL that used to live in X location is now in Y location. And what that does is it stops people from getting those errors. So have you ever gone to a page where it says, I'm sorry, something's gone wrong, this page is no longer available? Google, again, does not want to send people to those pages. So those redirections, they're crucial for the customer experience, but really important for Google as well. Now, page load time is also really important. Keep an eye on your speed. Now, image sizes can impact speed and a range of other things. So make sure you test that speed regularly. People are likely to give it under 2 seconds on a page that's not loading before they go off. So keep that in mind. Now, Google also knows that that is annoying for people. So it will rank you less favorably if you have slow load times, page load times. Now, there's also page title tags, meta descriptions, alt tags, and headings, which are a little bit more complex. So I'm going to expand on them a little bit more now, so go into more depth. So first of all, page title tags. So each of the pages in your website should have its own unique title tag. Now, that title tag should include the main keywords for that particular page. It's not the headline that's displayed on your page. It's only visible in code view. in the back end of your system, but Google and other search engines will use it to display the main title, or in the main title of the search results. So like what you can see here, if I'm searching ASBAS Perth, what you see on my screen comes up, the one that's in the red square. So that is really important. The optimal length of it is about 60 characters, which is long enough to display a good title without it getting cut off. Make sure you don't use stop words like the, is, and. They add no value whatsoever. So make it relevant to your keywords. The preferred format is to put your primary keywords first. Now, aside from being a really critical factor for Google and, in terms of how well your page ranks, page title tags really influence how clickable your link is, or how many people are actually going to click through to your website. So you think about, you Google a term, a range of results come up. You're actually going to read that section and decide whether or not you click through to that based on what it says. So keep that in mind, make sure it makes sense, and because your ultimate goal is really to get people to click through to your website from that area. Now, meta descriptions. Now, meta descriptions aren't visible on any part of your site except in the HTML code. So this is a little description that's found under the title in your search results. So have a look at the example on the screen. Now, this component doesn't actually affect your ranking in search engines, but again, if it's well written, it will encourage people to click through to your website, and that then boosts your traffic. So it's like a mini advert for your page, and it's free. If you don't enter a meta description in the back end of your website, for each of your pages, Google is going to do it for you. So it'll take a small sample from the text, from your pages. Sometimes it's cut off, maybe it's not that relevant to your keywords. So really take advantage of this. Obviously it's free, and it's basically advertising for your business to get people to click through. So with this, make sure you only use, it's 160 characters in this area. Make sure the text doesn't get cut off, or try not to get it cut off. Don't use the same meta description for every page of your website. It obviously does no value because each page is ranked in its own right. So each page meta description should therefore be unique. So definitely keep that in mind, and make sure that you have a look. Now, a lot of these things, when we start to talk about SEO, you may or may not be accessing the back end of your website at the moment, or you may or may not have experience in SEO, but at the very least, if you are paying an SEO person, or if you'd like to have a look at this yourself, you can absolutely access it through the back end of your website, or ask your SEO person about it. Now, the last two areas of on-page SEO are alt tags and heading tags. Alt tags are used for images. So they are the HTML tags that you can use to describe basically what an image is. So search engines can't see images. They can only read the description. So they have no idea what it is, or if it's relevant, without a good description in there. If they can find your image because it's correctly labeled, then your images might appear in a Google Images search, but it's also really good for your SEO. So include your keywords or the title of the page with the keywords that you're trying to rank for in those alt tags. Heading tags are also important for SEO. Now, heading tags help both the reader of your content, but also the Google bots to determine what the content is on your page and how important it is. So as users of a website, will glance over a page. So these headings, depending on their size, are really important to just draw our eyes to specific topics. Search engines use the heading tags as indicators of context. So what's on the page, how does it relate to what the user is searching for? And heading tags all carry different weights. So an H1 should be, well, that's the most important. So it should be the main page heading. And then try and think of the headings, to go down like that. So H1, what's the entire page about? H2, 3, and 4, what's this particular section or then even paragraph about? And then it can go smaller from there. So absolutely look at that, because it's a key indicator for SEO as well. Now, looking at off-page SEO, and this is also known as off-site SEO at times. Now, these are actions that are taken outside of your own website that directly impact your rankings with search engine results, but they direct people back to your website. So I believe that off-site or off-page SEO should make up the majority of your strategy, because it really helps build the credibility of your website. So you want your website to rank above others that have similar messages. So to achieve that, you really need to have a strong authority from your website's perspective. So link building is a key way to do that. And that's the process of getting external pages to link to a page on your website. Now, building links can be complicated and it can be time consuming, because not all links are created equal in terms of some links have better value than others. So a link from an authoritative website will make a much greater impact on your search engine results than a new link or a link from a newly built site, I should say, or a low quality site. So in terms of link building, I believe that a link should, or a good quality link should come from a trusted and reputable site, or a site that's related to your type of business. So generally they're difficult to come by and they require some kind of human intervention to implement. It should be on a page that relates to the content that it's being linked to. So, you know, if you're a particular type of business, let's say you're a coffee distributor, from a coffee bean company, they might link straight to your coffee distribution page. You might also offer tea and other things in your business, but linking from their page to the page that relates to coffee on your business is really important. Generally speaking, like I said, they should have some kind of human intervention to obtain. So you can't buy bulk links or anything like that anymore. Google absolutely sees through all of those cheating ways to rank well. So you might have to contact a company that you work with and say, look, I've had a look at your website. It would be really great to have us featured on this page of your website. Can you link to a particular page on my site? You might, in exchange, offer them a link if there's a relevant space on your website to link to them. It has to be relevant. You can't just have a page of business links for the sake of it. Also, memberships are a really good way. If you're a member of a particular association, quite often they'll have member directories or different things like that. So a link from those directories back to your site can be good. But generally, a link should add value to the reader. So if someone's reading your website and you're linking to someone else's business, it has to be for a reason, and they have to be likely to be clicked as well. So keep that in mind. Google bots basically look at all the links that come into your website, but they don't consider them equal. So they'll give more weight to quality links and rank accordingly. So let's say if you have 100 poor quality links and your competitor has 15 good quality links, the chances are that your competitor will rank higher than you. And like I said, Google is very good at spotting scams, and so it's not something that's worthwhile doing. Just have a think about all the businesses that you're involved with, organizations, memberships, that kind of thing, and how you can potentially link with them online. Now, not link related, but other offsite or off-page SEO would be your social media. So social media actually sends signals to Google and other search engines. So the more interaction that you're getting on social media, the more comments, shares, likes, the more engagement you've got on social media, it sends a message to Google to say, look, you know, these guys are obviously very involved, engaged, lots of talk about this particular company, it improves your rankings. Also, you might have people experience your brand, you might work with influencers and that kind of thing, bloggers, whoever that might be. If there's anything written about you online, absolutely link back to the relevant pages on your website. And that's really going to help your SEO. So keep in mind that off-page SEO is really important. Now, remarketing. So SEO is ranking organically when people search, but there's also SEM, which is search engine marketing. Now, that's where you can set up advertising and it's pay per click. So we're not going to get into pay per click advertising today as such, but one form of pay per click advertising through the Google AdWords is remarketing. Now, done correctly, remarketing is great for increasing brand awareness and influencing conversions, and it can be really low cost. So it's a pretty simple concept. you are reinforcing your brand to people that have already visited your website, essentially. So a contact or a prospect will go to your website. Now, they may have come to your website through a variety of means. It could have been from advertising, from social media, from seeing your signage, however they've got to your site, but they have. Once they're on your site, Google tracks them. And then when they leave your site, you have the opportunity to then advertise to them as a banner or a display ad in other sites that they browse. So you'll most definitely have been a recipient of remarketing at some stage, whether you've noticed it or not. But it is hugely valuable for that brand awareness. So you might see a brand's ad 4 or 5 times before you click on it. And that company only pays when you actually click. So sometimes people don't ever click the ad, but their brand is continually in the back of their mind. So keep that in mind. The impressions are hugely valuable and you don't pay for them. So in terms of remarketing, there's 2 main forms. There's display and search. So display remarketing, your ads will appear to past visitors to your site no matter what they're looking for. So it doesn't have to be related to your product or business, just if they're searching around the web. And then you've also got the search. So that's a bit more of a refined approach. And that's where your ads are shown to past visitors when they're searching for similar products or services to yours. So that approach can be more effective because it's more targeted and it's sort of trying to target those people that are looking for a similar product. So trying to get the business to you as opposed to potential competitors. So if you were to do nothing else from a paid advertising perspective, absolutely consider remarketing. The campaigns will cost you very little per month. And like I said, you're only paying when people click. And when they click, they're going straight back to your website. All right, so that's sort of some of the online advertising you can do or online marketing you can do, but a really critical part of marketing effectively, and particularly doing it on a limited budget, is controlling and measuring that marketing. So essentially, you'll define the method of measurement before you launch any campaign. You need to know how you're going to measure something before you do it. If that's flyers on the street, do they have a code, a discount code or something on them? If it's online advertising, it's very, very trackable. So that side of it's easy, but you have to evaluate all marketing activities to determine if they were in fact or produced a return on investment. So compare what your goals were, what your spend was, and then what your results were, and identify any deviations. So if what was the cause for deviation? If there was a problem, correct that problem and formulate a new plan and take action in that sense. If it went extremely well and far better than you predicted, exploit that, spend more money on it, or keep rolling with that particular campaign. But it's really important that you do evaluate absolutely everything. Use Google Analytics to track the back end of your website and what behaviors are going on in and around your website. And use other mechanisms to track actual purchases and things that happen away from your website. And report on it weekly, fortnightly, monthly, however often you can, to make sure that you're quick to address any problems. Stay disciplined, follow the price and quantity objectives, follow what you're trying to achieve, but keep in mind conditions can change. So if they do, take a note of it, adapt the marketing plan to fit those conditions if you can. So there could be bad weather, there could be lockdowns, there could be a range of different things that are beyond your control that happen that affect your campaigns. Make sure you then revise what your sales objectives are. If you fail to achieve the sales target, then you will have to rethink the next part of your strategy. So the best marketing plan is one that you review often. So it's not a set and forget. It's something that you can continually learn lessons from as you go and keep refining to make sure that every dollar is spent really effectively. Now, before we wrap up, I'm just going to quickly run through some metrics. You might be wondering what you can measure. So I would recommend at a minimum, you set up monthly reporting to measure your marketing activity. Now, I would measure your sales and leads. So think about total sales, think about specific products or services and comparing them against each other. Think about the cost associated with acquiring a lead, so your marketing spend, and then what your conversion rate was. How many inquiries did you get in versus how many sales did you make? Web statistics are really important. Look at unique users, look at sessions on your website. That could be a returning visitor to your site going on multiple times. So it's a good stat to measure perhaps how people use your site. Also look at average page views. Page views is a good way to see how engaged users are in your site and how deep they're going into your site. So how many pages did they view overall? So if you've got a range of content and information and your average page view might be 2.3, keep an pages, let's say, keep an eye on that. And if it gets to 2.7 or if it drops lower, people might not be as engaged, if that makes sense. So those numbers are just examples. Look at goals and conversions if you've got them set up. It could be a goal or a conversion could be completing a contact us form or actually transacting. Also look at referral traffic on your website. So where did your hits come from? Now there's a specific referral traffic area, which I find really interesting because you can see if you do have links on other websites, you can see where those hits are coming from. And of course, look at your social media stats and focus on engagement here. So making sure that you're getting engagement on every post that you do. So that's it from me. That wraps up our session on strategic marketing on a shoestring budget. Obviously, it's been really quick and that's just a really brief and broad overview. Hopefully there's some things that you can take out of this to improve the marketing within your business and to be more strategic so that it will save you money. I can stay on now and answer any questions that you might have. Keep in mind, if you want to know more or want to talk about any other aspect of your business, you can do that through a one-on-one appointment through your ASBAS login. But also I'd encourage you to join other webinars that we've got running as well. So thanks again for joining me today. I hope you got a lot out of today and happy to answer any questions. So fire away if you have any. Thanks again.